know you didn't know that this was based on a play, just based on how this is structured. The quick cocktail napkin synopsis of the movie is it follows two twin sisters, Racine and Anaya, played by Kara Young and Mallory Johnson. And they are two sisters that are essentially sent by their mother, played by Vivica A. Fox. They're sent by their mother to kill their father. Their father basically tried to burn his wife, their mother, alive in a bathtub when they were very young. And the sisters have scars from this. Racine, and this is important, Racine's scars are mainly on her arm and the back of her neck, her burn scars and her grafts. And Anya, her scars are on her face and on her neck, making her very hard to look at. And one of the undercurrent recurring parts of this movie being that people don't look her in the eyes when they talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, after mom, who they referred to as God, sends them on this quest to kill their father, played by Sterling K. Brown, and we'll talk about him in a minute. Um, Essentially, then, it's not a road movie in the sense that there's like eight, nine stops. There's three stops in this movie. There's three distinct stops and the textured characters they meet wherein. This is a story about revenge. This is a story about rage. This is a story about trauma. This is a story about healing. And it's contrasted in the two sisters. Racine is the rough one. This is how the play refers to them. Racine, the rough one. Anya, the quiet one. Racine is the one who has enough anger for both of them, or Anya, who, again, to remind you, is the more deeply disfigured one from the physical burns and injuries that she suffered at the hands of her father. She is the one who feels like more of the pacifist and is more of like the calming sense of grace that Racine lacks, and vice versa. That's how I'm starting it off. Where do you want to take it, Dom?
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with the layout of this movie and how much it really has to say. And this feels like a movie where there's going to be like 20 different articles doing 20 different dissertations on all these approaches. You got privilege between the two sisters alone. You've got, of course, the black experience. You've got inter-black conflict. You've got, pointing out corruption in and the twisting of faith and its role in black communities. You've got black trauma. You've just got general trauma, right? Which is the trauma in general. I kind of not roll my eyes at, but when it comes to being in a film, in a mainstream wide release film, I'm kind of like, all right, how old is this director, right? Are they in their 30s and 40s? But it takes on a very somber, serious twist here, which I don't mind at all. And I think for me, what struck me the most was actually how much I appreciated how they were able to stylize this movie despite its extremely dark themes. Like not just themes, but also just plot. Like an abusive father, I'm saying it again, an abusive father burns his wife and children alive and they all survive. Like, Jesus Christ, what the hell, dude? Um, but they're still able to inject humor, uh, at times light-hearted, heartwarming humor, particularly between the two sisters and the text that you see on screen when they're having their little, Steve may explain it, but their little like mental twin powers there that I think is exaggerated. Maybe I don't know. Twins would have to tell me, but the way that they're able to, find joy out of this extremely dark subject matter and this journey that they go on, this several layers of hell that they dive into, they're still able to find joy and funny moments. This film is able to find those moments, which in a way is reflective of the whole black American experience. So that alone, no matter what critiques we have of this film, I'm already in. I'm already in.
Well said. This to go back to it, and this is another reason where it was like I just can't imagine this is a friggin' play, is that
Hmm.
one of the directorial hallmarks, and I've seen mixed opinions on this, is sort of like I describe it as telepathic communication between the sisters.
Right.
Is when they look at each other, they're often doing something. Sometimes they're just sitting stationary, or oftentimes they're doing something like rubbing ice on each other's burns to cool them down. They'll look at each other, their eyes will meet, and text will be on screen near the heads of who's communicating with who. So they have kind of this, metatextual unspoken pact that the two of them share, being twins. Kind of reminded me of the movie Take Me Home Tonight with Topher Grace, when Topher Grace and Anna Faris, who are twins in the movie, are portraying twins, are going back and forth and finishing each other's sentences. And Dan Fogler goes, "You guys always freak me out with that twin shit." And that's what it kind of reminded me of here. But you know what's funny about that is that I get if it bugs people. I do. I get if it bugs people or takes people out of it. I've always felt like I'm kinder to movies that are based on plays or just plays in general. I love stage plays. I love the art of playwriting, having done it before and also learning about it. It's something I've really appreciated. You know what the funny thing about this movie is, and I didn't realize it until I was writing the review. That part of it I really liked because it gives it sort of like a directorial uniqueness to it. But the other part of this movie is that it's so lived in with the
Mm.
characters that Racine and Anya meet. And I'm not just talking about them and the way that they communicate, but the people that they meet, the few people that they meet on the journey to their father. And the fact that the movie is so good and engrossing and yet like specific to certain themes of rage and revenge and healing and trauma, that I didn't even find myself until writing the review like, well, wait a minute. How did they know exactly where the dad was? How did they get the money to go on this trip? How did they find the vehicles? And that's one of the things about plays, is that great plays have this sort of magical realism where they're so focused on characters and themes that you can kind of forgive the nuances and the logic. At least I can. I can't speak for anybody else, and some of the criticism I've seen addresses that. But like, there's a magical realism undercurrent of this that kind of makes you forget all of that, and you're so hyper focused on these two sisters that it just you disregard some of the details that don't get hashed out.
Yeah. For me, I'm sitting there going questioning the whole time. Uh, they're and I guess we're already kind of going into a little bit of critiques because I was already so thoroughly impressed with it. I guess steel manning the argument, but for me, I'm like, man, they are really just doing whatever the mom says. Now,
They
granted, they
call
have
her
a
God. They call her
they
God.
literally call her God. Like, wow, and like, this is the first time they've met. That's it. That's okay, cool. But like you said, Steve, it didn't really bother me at all. Like to the point where I can't even use it as a knock against any kind of rating that we give this because it's just so engrossing. It's so stylized and not so stylized. It's a little more subtle than that, but it takes that play like fantastical, you know, elements and makes it something really worth watching. That I was just glued to the screen. I know for a fact that a lot of the side characters here too are also eating up every second that they are on the screen.
The biggest names are side characters in this movie. The biggest
I,
actors.
I love that. I love it when movies do that and they have the confidence to do that. And it's because when you already have like a script this strong and lead, actors who already know what they're doing, even if they're not mainstream famous, they already know what they're like. Sterling K. Brown is mainstream, is probably no, Janelle Monae. Sorry, Janelle Monae is probably the most famous person here. Uh, but still, it's like, and I feel like has Janelle Monae done like a lead? She's done a lead, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
protagonist.
she was kind. I was gonna say go back to Hidden Figures.
Oh, sure.
Go
Okay.
back to Hidden Figures. I know she kind of shared. I think if you want, Taraji was more the lead in that movie, but she was.
Yeah.
I kind of see that as a trifecta. Her, Octavia.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Today, talking Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, one of the most heavily anticipated movies of 2026. Bound to be one of the highest grossing when it's all said and done. Just had one of the biggest weekends for a Nolan movie on record, which is quite an accomplishment considering he's done 3 Batman movies and a litany of other highly anticipated movies like Oppenheimer just a couple of years ago, too. This movie's been receiving a ton of buzz. I think the poster's been up at my local theater now for over a year or just about a year. So this thing has had a lot of rumblings for a long period of time. And I guess the first thing to say is I would forgive going into spoiler territory for this, given the fact that the source material is 3,000 years old. I would say that much, given the fact that it's based off of Homer's ancient Greek poem, The Odyssey, which I have not read, admittedly. I know I knew more of it than I thought I did watching this movie. Like, I obviously knew about the Trojan War, knew about
That's like the one thing
Cyclops
everyone
battle.
knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're born with that knowledge, quite frankly. I knew about the Trojan War. I knew about the witch. I knew about Cyclops and stuff. There was quite a few characters I didn't know. I'm not making out to be like an armchair expert over here, but I think it behooves you to at least familiarize yourself with it before going into it. I think it behooves you to familiarize yourself with the material or at least some of the integral characters of this, though. But again, directed by Christopher Nolan, written by Nolan, got a lot of great people in this thing. Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson. Quite a few notable names in this thing. A lot to discuss, a lot to chew on with The Odyssey here. As we get into that first review in probably a little over a month since the three of us have been on it. Of course, I'm joined with Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon here for Sleepless tonight to talk The Odyssey. Gentlemen, how are we doing? I'll start with you, Joe.
I'm doing pretty good. I was very much looking forward to this weekend, because of, or this previous weekend, I should say, because I was very much anticipating The Odyssey. It was, if I did like a top 5 most anticipated movies of the year, it was probably my number 2. Number 1 was Obsession because that trailer just freaked me out, and then my friend who went to the film festival also got me like really hyped for it when he told me it was like right up my alley and everything. But anyways, yeah, the funniest thing happened when we went to the theater. Originally, like I went with a group of friends, and we already bought tickets for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and we did another movie in Dolby. I think it was Disclosure. No, I forget which movie it was. We did some movie recently in Dolby, and they were like, hey, like, we don't really want to pay like another Dolby ticket. I know this is The Odyssey. They weren't like as excited as I was. Like, do you care if we could do standard format for this? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. So when the tickets dropped, there was only 3 showtimes on Friday night that dropped for it. I was like, that's weird. I'm like, why is there only 3 showtimes? So I bought the 7 p.m. showtime because that'd be the most convenient. I would figure with the Odyssey standard format would have way more options to choose from. And then I get to the theater on Friday night, and I show the guy my ticket, and the guy's like, oh, okay, we had to move you guys to a different theater. And I'm like, which one? He's like, well, you guys are going to be seeing an IMAX. Originally, we weren't going to get an IMAX print, and then we did get the reel, so we took everybody in the 7 p.m. showtime and upgraded them to IMAX for free. And not only did they do that for everybody that bought a ticket for that 7 p.m. showtime, the people who got like that 7 p.m. showtime, like right off the bat, they got like the preferred seating. We basically got like that center area that like Nolan talks about. Like when you go see a movie in IMAX, you should sit around here. We were 2 rows down exactly from like where he said it would be, but like still, it was still a good center view and everything. Like my friends were like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like, we get to see it in IMAX. It sucks that like for some reason our AMC's IMAX, they haven't updated the chairs. They're not leather. They're still that old like gray early 2000s AMC chairs if you're familiar with them. But it was really cool to like go to the theater and just surprise, surprise. Like, I was kind of like, damn, I really want to see this thing in IMAX. I'm gonna have to go see it twice if I end up really loving it, and then see it the second time in like a premium format. But since I got that like literally opening weekend, I'm like, ooh, okay, I am fed for like the next few weeks, and maybe I'll go check it out like in 4DX or something before it leaves like the official premium formats whenever that weekend comes.
That's an all-time experience right there. You're gonna remember that one,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I mean, I would say I'll be interested too because I know Spider-Man comes out in 2 weeks. I'll be interested to see how long this thing can last in IMAX too, because that's gonna want some of those
Yeah,
theaters too.
I'm
So
guessing
I wonder what the split's gonna be.
they're gonna do what I think they did like previously with like Dune, and I think it was like another Dune Part Two and another movie that came out. I think it was Sinners. Uh, then those two like
Oh,
came out like near one another, or it was something like that. Um, where it was like Dune, because it was the more older film that got like released earlier in the year. They gave it the early show times in IMAX. If you want to go see Dune 2 in IMAX, you would go at like 11 and 3. Sinners was 5, 8 o'clock, and 11 p.m. So it had like the late night one. So that way it's not like the matinee cost. They would get like the full price, like, payment for the new movie of the week.
Right. Dom, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I also saw this movie in standard definition because all the IMAX showings were sold out for like 3 days straight. Watched it, nope, Monday. And yeah. But other than that, just keeping up with the heat. Okay, so last week, not even just the heat, the air quality was piss poor to the point where it was off the charts. And cartridges, like 3M respirator that you use either for job sites or tear gas. And I was just walking around Chicago with it, and I was like, how the hell is no one wearing a mask? Not even an N95, which granted, N95, that's still not great for the level of air quality that was last Thursday. Absolute
Dude,
garbage.
I saw
I
people
was
driving
fine.
with their windows down. I'm like, what are you doing?
What an
Like,
idiot.
And cars aren't like that well sealed too, so it's still seeping in. And if you have the air conditioner on too,
Thankfully,
you
I
know,
had my air filter replaced like last month.
mhm.
But people just forget to replace that shit.
Yeah.
y-
Insane.
you can do it yourself. It's that easy too.
Also true.
Y-
Yeah.
You can do it. It's one of the few car things I can do.
Yeah.
You know, but you mentioned going back to the Odyssey, Dom. You mentioned seeing it in standard definition. There is a
Yeah.
term. There is another term for that though, because standard definition really doesn't exist anymore. It's high definition.
You're right. You're right.
Anything is the term for a traditional movie, how it's shown in a traditional format is DCP. It's known as the digital cinema package. I learned
Mm.
that seeing Dunkirk 9 years ago that was the term for
Oh.
just like a regular theater screening. I too saw this in DCP or just a non-upgraded, non-premium format, if you will. Um, and it's funny because it made me think of Dunkirk back in 2017, which I did see in IMAX. And I remember like when I was writing the review of it and even like reflecting upon it, upon having just seen it, now what I think of Dunkirk now. I think back to it as an experience more so than anything.
Yeah.
Seeing it in the theater, experiencing the sound, the sort of enveloping images of Dunkirk. And if you saw it in IMAX, you know what I'm talking about. If you saw it in IMAX 70 millimeter, which there are only 41 theaters in the entire world that are capable of showing an IMAX movie in 70 millimeter, which is what the Odyssey is shot on, you're part of a privileged class that I can't even comprehend. Um, and that's kind of where I guess that's where I'll just begin with the Odyssey. I'm not saying you guys have to, as well, is that it's a lot like Dunkirk insofar in that it really, I feel like the experience and what you take away from this movie is largely going to depend on the format you see it in. Um, and it goes to sort of a larger complaint that I have just in general about the way that Hollywood has started to optimize the sound and the visuals of their movies, not taking into consideration that theaters now or that movies now play in theaters for such a limited amount of time compared to how they land on streaming and then, spend the rest of their lives on streaming or home video. Um, when you have a movie like this that's shot on IMAX 70 millimeter and is optimized for a format that very few people can access or that have access to, what ultimately happens then is seeing it in like a standard theater setting, the quality of the sound suffers, the quality of the visuals suffer a little bit. And while to be expected, and I like the movie, while to be expected, it did impede on it a little bit more than I was anticipating in terms of how I responded to it. Um, on a larger basis of character arcs, character development, and sort of plot progression and stuff. Might be an odd way to start, but that's kind of how I started my review, so that's where I'm starting here. I'll throw it to you, Joe. What say you about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey?
Yeah. Um, so like I said earlier, this was my second most anticipated movie of the year. Greek mythology, as a kid, always interested me. I read Percy Jackson. I didn't read all the books, but I read most of them. I own, and Steve, if you ever do decide to read it, I do own The Odyssey. I've been rereading it. I did not finish it in time for the movie, unfortunately. It is a long fucking book. I highly recommend. Damn it, you can't see. I highly recommend this version of it. It's Fitzgerald's translation. It's the easiest one to like understand what the hell they're talking about in scenes from time to time, since it's a damn poem the entire time. I also do like his translation because it has a whole prologue thing that is way, 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 way like better than the prologue in other translations of his book of Homer's text, I should say. It very much goes into the Trojan War and everything leading up to that, and it does a really good job at explaining all that. It might even give you like some stuff you didn't know about. The stuff like that's in the Iliad and other parts too. So yeah, going into this, like I said, I was so looking forward to it, couldn't wait and everything. After seeing something like Oppenheimer as well, I was I felt like that was like watching Nolan take everything in his career and perfecting it. Previously with some Nolan films, I kind of took issues with like how he would write certain characters and stuff. And that's not to say I do see where you're coming from, and I'll talk about that later. But his writing in the past would sometimes have characters be a little too serious, and they are exposition. I would call them sometimes exposition dump characters. They sometimes just lack a personality because their whole characteristic is, I'm the person that's going to explain blank for the rest of the movie. And like the one movie that comes to mind every time I think about this is Tenet. That is like every time I think about that, I'm like, to me, if you want to know like what the weakest aspects of Nolan are, it sometimes is his writing. Sometimes he can write a good script like Oppenheimer. Sometimes he gets way too lost in something like Tenet, and he spends the whole movie explaining what Tenet is, and still you leave the movie going, "What the hell was Tenet?"
Inception really is like the
A good
perfect
balance.
it's a good balance where it's
Yeah.
like, no, you can be efficient with these characters because we really, really need to know how this freaking works before you start it.
Yeah, and like so I look at something like Oppenheimer where he wrote and directed the film. You follow a character who's hell bent on accomplishing a goal due to his passion in science, all that stuff. But he somehow found humanity in the cast of characters that you are with the entire time, while they're dealing with a grim situation about literally building a device that's going to end the world. So I look at it like this: if Oppenheimer was him perfecting his craft, and I don't know how you guys are going to swing, Steve. After that opening, I could totally see where you might go with this. The Odyssey to me is almost him perfecting it and just flexing like his blockbuster skill making at this point. It's not all perfect, and like for me, Oppenheimer is still a better picture overall for me. But there are so many moments throughout this movie I'm just like, God damn, Nolan's one of the greatest. Like I already knew that even like going into this movie. And I even knew that leaving Tenet, like, yeah, this is just a bump in the road, but he'll probably swing right back. And then he did. Like, one of my favorite parts about this, too, is, like, you know, one thing that he did with Oppenheimer is he managed to find a way to have, like, comedic moments through a movie that was so tense, had such a grim situation, yet organically found a way to do comedic moments. And he does that here as well with a lot of the dialogue here where it's, like, it's this grand adventure and everything. And while people might bring up the whole, like, okay, but like, you know, they're using a lot of modern day dialogue compared to like the text that Homer wrote and everything. I do appreciate the adaptation that Nolan's doing here because his whole idea was to make it more like you would feel the heart of the characters, you'd be more emotionally attached to them. And I did find myself, similarly to Oppenheimer as well, the last 45 minutes of this movie, I feel like everything that we've been watching, all these moments building up to this moment right here, and now we're watching like, the climax, which is like the last 45 minutes of this is literally just that. And I'm on the edge of my seat because I'm just like, you know what? While I do agree with you slightly, Steve, that like, yeah, I really wish some characters got a little bit more time to develop an arc and everything. I am invested in them so much because I got lost in this journey with them because it's such a fun adventure from
You
beginning
got
to end.
lost.
Yeah, I got lost. I was on the boat with them and everything. It is such a fun adventure. It always has been. It's one of my favorite, like, stories ever seen recreated. I mean, like, going back to the whole Percy Jackson thing, Sea of Monsters is literally just a remake where Percy has to recreate the same events of this book, but, like, different things happen. And then everything happening back at home with Queen Penelope and Telemachus as they're waiting for Odysseus to come home. Even that's dramatic, and you're waiting to see how, like, that's gonna, like, the suitors in their home are gonna get their comeuppance and everything. It's such just a story where it's like when you get to that last 45 minutes and you're like, okay, everything's coming together. How are they gonna pull it off? And to me, it's the best part of the movie. I love the last. I mean, I'm loving everything about the movie, but like that last 45 minutes just like stole away from me, where it was just like, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I think Nolan's filmmaking is outstanding here from on a technical scale with both the practical effects, the cinematography, and Ludwig's score, like how that's incorporated throughout the movie. That bow pluck every time, just music to my ears, literally music to my ears. It got me so excited. It's just a masterclass of a guy who can take everything he's been learning and shoot it so perfectly and well done. And it's so funny. Like, one of my favorite moments of, like, not this movie, but just like the press tour with this is how Tom, who's used to Marvel movies and like has been like on these like grueling long sets where they're standing by and everything, and he talked about how, man, it was wild being on a set with Nolan, and it's like, there's something we're shooting here. It's a battle. He got it done in hours. When we did this for like Infinity War, this took days, weeks, and this guy just knows exactly what to do, how to stage it, how to frame it. And the fact that it's all done practically with extras, and a giant cyclops and like animatronics that are, and like stunt doubles that are 7 feet tall, while like they use 5 feet tall women for the other soldiers. It's just insane filmmaking that I just can't wait to get the bonus features on and everything. I could keep gushing about this, and I probably will throughout the rest of the review, but I'll pass it off to Don before I continue.
Yeah, I mean, taking on some like the Oppenheimer story really is like the epitome of modern of the modern fallen hero and the modern, like, hey, this is probably the defining thing of the 20th century, which is the invention of nuclear weapons. What? How do you go for, like, is Nolan gonna go small after this? No, we're gonna do the story that probably invented in medias res and like a bunch of other like basic story structures, the grounding of Western storytelling by I don't know the full historiography, but that's ambitious. But what better man to do it, right, than a director of that stature? And I'm happy to report that, yeah, he did it in the sense that unlike Joe, I am not a big like Greek mythology guy. I appreciate it. I understand its influence, but it's just really not for me. In the same way that Shakespeare really isn't for me either. I'm one of those guys where, I do have a hard time with the original text, and I do need it translated, and I do kind of need it, like, I need someone on my shoulder going like, yeah, this is what they mean here, because I just can't connect with it in that way. And I am not well learned in the arts of of Greek mythology.
Fitzgerald's got your
But
back, I'm telling you.
yeah. There you go. And I appreciate people who can do that, such as Nolan. I was like, yeah, this guy nailed it. This is what is Odysseus, I guess, then, or just Greek mythology, if not a series of episodes where this guy is just is learning lessons along the way, or building to this narrative. And that's the way Nolan is able to weave through that, through the craft of keeping something engaging and interesting, is really fascinating to see in his kind of like hyper realistic style, not hyper realistic, but a realism
Yeah.
to it, right? I think I was seeing some comparisons of like, yeah, sure, if we were going hyper realistic, their armor would have looked so goofy. It would have looked so stupid. Some of it looked like Dark Knight-ish, and I'm okay with that. I don't care. That's again, that is some flex in the believability that I'm willing to give
Yeah.
in this manner, and that's coming from a guy who loves history. Antiquity, not really my forte, as you can guess based off my previous comments, but how Nolan is able to bring us forward and propel that narrative and keep things honestly that's a snappy 3 hours. That's that like I was impressed. The only time where I felt it was like, oh, feels like 2.5 hours where most movies end. But no, we got something extra going on here. And you know what that scene is? That's the scene where Odysseus comes home. And I'm like, bro, maximum like propulsion. I'm down. Give me another hour. I'm cool with it. This
Yeah.
is awesome. And like the mission of how he comes back. Shit, man. This felt like it's the same feeling I got when we got to the final final few sequences of Inception,
Yeah.
where it's like,
The
no,
dreams are collapsing.
the dreams are collapsing. How it all comes together. How does Odysseus come home?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. And the fact that a a modern storyteller can do that while also, according to what I've read, stay true to the source material while not doing it in a like a hokey sense, relating it to modern audiences with the
Yeah.
moral center of this movie, which is the upending of the human, I guess, societal condition. Funny how I was able to do that twice with Oppenheimer, which was like, hey, we invented nukes.
I'm
Now,
glad you. I was
yeah,
gonna say
yeah.
I'm glad you said that because like there's the last like the revelation I'll call it in this movie. It very much reminds me of Oppenheimer's revelation at the end of
Yeah.
his movie, where it's like I like because both are framed in a similar way. Both are told
Hmm.
both are having stories told out at different times. That's just Nolan's shtick at this point, I think. Uh, time and storytelling being told different places, different times. Um, but like what I really like about this is like for a movie that like we look at Oppenheimer and you spend a lot of time before he invents the nuke and everything, and then you spend the time after and the downfall of that. With the Odyssey, you spend a lot of time before he comes to this revelation and everything. And it's like they're very much mirroring the same journey of like this whole revelation and everything that they have. And it's almost like Nolan's like, there's that whole thing about like films have like conversations with one another. It's almost like Nolan was like just having a conversation with himself about Oppenheimer, comparing it to Odysseus' journey home. And like,
Yeah.
his whole stance on the
What's
Trojan
that one
War.
shot? That one shot of Oppenheimer like just like doing this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, what did
That's
I do?
Odysseus on the
That's
stairs.
Odysseus.
Like,
After the Trojan, after his his base maneuver at to get into the city. It's like, oh shit, I kind of ruined warfare for everyone. Oh no, oh god.
What is it might be surprising, but the movie does have, it's one of its strongest elements too, I think, is the fact that it does feel spiritually thematically connected to Oppenheimer. One of the ways I found so was the fact that like it's sort of Odysseus coming to grips that he's leaving the next generation, specifically his son, played by Tom Holland,
Yeah.
with a world that's less safe. And you have, which is the same thing that Oppenheimer struggled with,
yeah.
throughout the entirety of the movie. And Nolan uses Zeus's law in this movie. One of the towering principles of Zeus's law is the old, you learn it in grade school, the golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
The do unto others as you would have them do unto you. By rejecting that fundamental principle, or the laws of the gods, you know, it leads to like atrocities. It leads to anger and unrest and contempt and all these different things. The consequences of abandoning that golden rule are really what Odysseus feels throughout the entire movie. And you kind of then see the reverberations of it in Odysseus's absence when it goes back to his wife Penelope and his son. And you get that. It's very intense here for somebody who I've said in the past, and Joe brought it up earlier, especially. I think Tenet is his weakest movie by far when it comes to this, especially. Nolan has always kind of had a hard time writing interpersonal relationships or writing like dialogue meant for you to find out about characters. He's
Yeah.
so mathematical as a filmmaker that it kind of comes off as either expository or robotic. There are some moving moments in this thing that
Hmm.
are real, especially between Hathaway and Holland. Credit to their performances, but the dialogue and the raw emotion that they're exuding too within the dialogue is very apparent too. You have John Leguizamo too, who plays a
I love this
blind father.
character.
He's sort of the emotional soul of the
Yeah.
movie, I think, in a lot of ways, like the elder statesman of it too. And then you have a lot of performances on the periphery, like John Bernthal, Elliot Page. You have a lot of other performances sort of on the periphery of the thing. Um, that are all good in their own ways. Maybe not entirely developed too well, but like the moment when Bernthal's character, whose name I'm trying to source quickly,
The King of
Bernthal's
Sparta. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Bernthal's character though was fascinating to me, because of the fact, yeah, he's the king of Sparta, um, and he's also Helen's husband, I believe. He has a good moment with
Menial
Odysseus,
Menialsis, or yeah, it's something like that. I can't pronounce it.
Menelaus,
Menelaus, thank you.
Menelaus,
Yeah.
I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
Practicing my Greek tongue here, but he's got a great moment with Odysseus's son, Telemachus, where he tells him about the bravery his father, portrayed, and like how he like acted on it, and how he didn't internalize it. He used it as like a call to action and things like that. So you have a lot of these like smaller moments too, and sprinkled in this thing. You don't get much. I'm not saying this as a criticism, is just a fact. You don't get a lot. The only god you really see in the movie is Athena.
Hmm.
That's really the only god that you actually see sort of a physical representation of. She's played by Zendaya, but even her presence or lack thereof is greatly felt here. And I think that is a testament. That's growth for Nolan too, and just as a writer to like these smaller roles feel very impactful. And
Weighted.
I think in
Yeah.
large part due to the fact of his writing. His writing has, I mean, you look just from Tenet 5 years ago to now has
Yeah.
significantly improved.
And even Samantha Morton as Cersei, like that whole sequence
Probably the
is
most, probably destined to be the most overlooked, underrated role.
man, honestly, and it sucks too because that is a great sequence with her too. I mean, it is like a Nolan horror film basically, and it's like
That's what I said.
he's expressing interest in horror films. He's talked about obsession since this movie has come out, and people have seen this sequence in the movie. And it's like, man, if you want to go that for your next route, I'm all for it. But like, that is such a small role. It's only about maybe 5 minutes of screen time, yet he knows exactly what dialogue to give her weight, to give her character, like, like an understanding of where she's coming from, and also build an amazing intense sequence around her that like is gonna have you kind of gripping your chair, because if you don't like body horror, you're gonna be freaking out what you're seeing.
I did not think we were gonna get body horror in this movie, and they nailed it, bro.
Dude.
Dude, the skulls were shaped.
It kind
man.
of it kind of reminded me of, and I know this is really a deep cut, and I almost forgot I saw this until I was writing my review. It reminded me of it's an Ingmar Bergman movie from the 70s with Max von Sydow. It's called The Hour of the Wolf. And it reminded me because the thing that's fascinating about that movie is that it reminded me of it in setting, because that's like a werewolf movie.
Yeah.
Reminded me of setting because it's like in a pastoral, kind of countryside location. And I've always thought some of the most impressive horror movies are horror movies that are conducted in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that made me think of Bergman watching that scene, where I'm like, this is probably the closest flavoring at this point that we would get to a Nolan horror movie. And it's fascinating. It's like, once when I started really getting on board with this thing, I'm not going to lie. It was a slow and sometimes frustrating 40 minutes, first 40 minutes, because it's sort of how I felt. It sort of plunks you into the world. And it's sort of like dizzies you in throwing the different characters, and like it almost feels like you missed like 20 minutes of context.
There's some
You
weird
know,
editing in the first 20 minutes I was noticing too, where it's like characters are talking and they're cutting the different people in the room that I'm just like, I get it. They're in the room with him. I get it. Like, you know, I know they're characters in the book, but like it's weird. Like somebody be talking and immediately like they're just saying two words and it cuts to Telemachus for 2 seconds, cuts back to Penelope talking, cuts to
and
then
I think that
yeah.
threw me off.
Yeah.
That threw me off early with it, where it was like, I mean, first off, I'm willing to bet that Nolan did not envision his version of the Odyssey being sub 3 hours. I can believe it was probably closer to 5 or even
he
longer.
shot a lot and apparently he could not fit it all into an IMAX projector reel.
I think the beginning suffers because of that. But once you get Odysseus, once he sets forth with the Greek army, and you get the Trojan, you get the first part of the Trojan War with the horse, then it starts to really find its footing, even as it flashes like forward or back to the present at Ithaca. Once it kind of figures out its footing there, it really gets into motion because it sort of takes the poem structure, how I understand it, it sort of takes the poem structure and does what a poem does in creating these vignettes that feel like, that not only feel standalone great, but also part of the larger Odyssey, if you will. And that I appreciated too. Like there's dimension to the Trojan War, there's dimension to the Cyclops thing beyond the, I mean, even adding to the fact that it's and again, I don't know unless you read about it before, it's a puppet. It's not CGI, the Cyclops. There's not as much CGI as you might assume with this thing. And it feels, I recall the Top Gun Maverick in my review too. I said when it's real, it feels different. And that's the best way I can describe it. When it's real, it feels different.
Yeah. It's so, we extracted so much as a classroom idea. Going back to the Trojan horse maneuver, right? We associate that with like strategic brilliance and like a tactical, like, oh wow, look at how cool this is. Meanwhile, the film properly recenters it morally, and we're like, no, this was like a war crime. This is terrible, and this led to really really bad things, guys. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Nolan, in recent years, has been attempted to be recruited by the general cultural right. And it's like, oh yeah, hyper realism, tactical, whatever.
Well, look what happened when Barbie came out compared to his movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And there's been attempts to, but really they've been unsuccessful because there is a grounding of humanity in Nolan's work.
Yeah.
As opposed to, say, what's his name's work? Rebel Moon.
Oh, Zack Snyder's
work, where you are really lacking that. And that basic understanding of people that you do get here and there with a Nolan film. In this case, we really get it, and I'm really happy about that. And yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I know we're butting up against break here.
Oh yeah, you're all shit.
I will. He's I don't want to pronounce the name. Maybe Joe can help me too. As a performance, another performance I think is destined to go overlooked here, but I like him as an actor and he's great here. Hamish Patel.
Yes.
Oh, he was so good.
Odysseus is second in command. I just want to give some Hamish Patel love. He's great. Like he's really good here, and he's a great counterbalance that doesn't feel like just sort of the inserted contrarian to Odysseus. I just want to give Patel some love too. I'll use the last minute for that. We will be back here as we continue talking Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, one of the most anticipated movies of 2026. Take a short intermission. Be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's Sleepless with Steve.
It's ever when things were just so slapdash at the last minute. No, a 3.5 out of 4 stars. This was great.
Really great discussion, guys. We will move forward, briefly touch on this. I do want to give this a little bit of time because we mentioned it about a month ago, and there's been not totally an update, but a bigger, more deep dive on it. It's less a news story now, and it's becoming more of a feature. Really, thanks to this excellently made variety piece by Adam B. Very. It has to deal with the Blair Witch Project actors, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I'm friends with Joshua Leonard on Facebook, so I saw when he posted this initially, this whole thing of calling out Blumhouse and calling out the studio behind the Blair Witch Project as well, which was Artisan Entertainment at the time, for not giving them their royalties and really not getting due compensation for a movie that was generationally effective, made hundreds of millions of dollars, and is still an ensuing cultural staple that now has a sequel and a soft reboot made since then. The title of the article is called "The Blair Witch Project Actors Call Out Quote Unquote Reprehensible Behavior After Missing Out on Profits for Decades." This is an exclusive to Variety by Adam B. Very. What basically Adam B. Very did was he got the three actors, Joshua Leonard, Michael C. Williams, and Ray Hance, formerly Heather Donahue, all together on Zoom to talk about exactly what they are demanding from Artisan, now Lionsgate, and Blumhouse, mainly Lionsgate, because Lionsgate really just came to an agreement with Blumhouse to try to reboot the movie again and make another movie. And it's coming up on the 25th anniversary of Blair Witch. This is the 25th anniversary year of that movie. So basically the three actors wrote an open letter to Lionsgate on April 20th requesting quote unquote meaningful consultation on any future Blair Witch related projects that would likely result in the use of their names and faces, and requesting retroactive and future residual payments for the movie, quote unquote, equivalent to the sum that would have been allotted through SAG-AFTRA had we had proper union or legal representation when the film was made. The key point to understanding this is you have to go back to when the Blair Witch Project was made and released. We were young. So when we learned about this, the buzz was long over. But basically, in 1999, the internet wasn't what it was today. This was a movie made on a shoestring budget that got three basically theater actors involved in the production of this movie. They were given cameras and they were given a script outline for what they had to reenact in the woods. And it was the producers and the very few people, limited crew members behind it that were making those sort of stick figure things and hanging them throughout the woods and kind of giving them a guided map on where to go. When the movie premiered at Sundance Film Festival, it was passed off as a real life student movie. And the actors had to go into hiding pretty much after the movie came out for about 9-10 months because it had to make it look like they were missing and presumed dead. Well, obviously, consequently, then they thought, well, we're going to go into hiding. This movie's going to get acquired, which it did by Artisan Entertainment. We're going to get money from this then eventually because they can't work. Yeah. They can't really work. They can't work in the entertainment industry, rather, at the time. One of the most moving parts of this long piece is when Michael C. Williams, the actor who plays Mikey in the movie, they all play their real character names. Love my webcam going out right now. He says, though, and a quote, "I'm embarrassed that I let this happen to me." He said, "You've got to put stuff away because you're a fucking loser if you can't, because everybody's wondering what happened and your wife's in the grocery line and she can't pay because a check bounced. You're in the most successful independent movie of all time and you can't take care of your loved ones." And that's really I think the most powerful part of this whole thing is that it's really, I think the most shocking is like how they didn't come out after the most recent reboot and they had the restraint to still, or they didn't feel like it was the time to come out, or they really didn't think that they would have the power and the movement behind them to do so now. The sad part, which is also noted, I was going to try to find it here really quick, with the is when they were talking to a representative for SAG-AFTRA, the author of the Variety piece, Adam B. Very. He says it's complicated, this situation, because he said he's hopeful that the performers will achieve some compensation, but when there is no union contract covering the production, the actors in the union are generally limited to appealing to fairness. And of course, Lionsgate representative declined the comment for the story, as well as former executives at Artisan Entertainment, which I doesn't exist anymore either. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, and I'm afraid it's not going to be much. It's not going to be to the just due or satisfaction of Ray Hance, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard, which really sucks because I can't imagine doing something like that at a really young age. You got to think they were in their early 20s when they did this. They were younger than us when they did that movie. Struggling post-college kids that were thinking that, like, to see this movie rake in hundreds of millions of dollars and become a cultural phenomenon while they're struggling to make rent. And they're the three behind it. And then the sequel comes out 2 years later. They don't get any money from that, even though they're using archival footage from the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Then Blair Witch comes out, which was a total secret production, as we talked about last time on the show. That was a total secret production. That movie comes out. They're in that movie in archival footage too. They don't get anything. They don't even get a fucking call that says that they're going to be doing this movie. It's shocking. I guess it shouldn't be shocking, but I guess the gull of these studios is really appalling. And I hope that something comes from it. I don't know if anything will, though, because the SAG-AFTRA compensation that they're seeking was something that had to be done for legal reasons on the production of the movie. And that didn't happen clearly. And I don't know if there's a way to remedy that. We'll go Dom and then Joe for commentary on this.
Yeah, I don't really have much hope from a legal standpoint. This whole play by the three. It's good. It's great that they're coming out now. But I feel like enough time has passed where, and asking for legal representation, it's really more so a play to the general public. We're not expecting anything to come from the studios that they're actually talking, that they were the letters and stuff were seemingly talking to. They're really talking to the general public just to get some public sympathy and maybe get to kind of like leverage them in that position, which again, if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. Because it's a damn shame. And Steve, you mentioned earlier that they didn't even have the backing. They didn't feel the confidence to do this even in 2016, which is a bit ago, but still. And that makes perfect sense considering the environment at the time. But here in 2024, they absolutely do. So I really can't comment too much more from this other than shout out to Variety for featuring this article. But I will say that this is this specific story of these three and what they're doing right now is a really interesting knockoff effect of the labor movement that we've been seeing in the past several years with the WGA, with SAG-AFTRA, and just in general, this kind of class consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't mean to get academic, but I'm saying, like, you're right. If they didn't feel this way in 2016 and not in every year subsequently, what makes it about it now in 2024 that gives them the courage to do this? It could be other things, like maybe they're more desperate. I really hope not, but maybe there's some things in their personal life, financially or what have you. I forget if they mentioned it in the story. That could be a thing that does happen. But I really think it's just the wider consciousness of like, hey, let's re-examine how we like compensate people for their creativity and their labor. They're more abstract labor.
It could be also, I mean, the most recent strike was about, the use of AI and everything, and the images used of people without their permissions and everything. So it could have been like, hey, you know what? Everybody was out and about protesting about this. Maybe this is our time to finally bring it up, because we're now in an age where it's like, people can be scanned into movies and without their permission and everything. And they just appear on the screen and whatnot. Like, Scarlett Johansson, one of the biggest actresses of all time, all of a sudden is now just an AI generated image on the screen and whatnot. So maybe that's...
Well, they hired a voice alike. That's okay.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, Dom, sorry I cut you off.
No. I mean, that's exactly my point, where it's just re-examining how we use people, use their likeness, and use their efforts.
Yeah.
And how do we compensate that? And that's really, really, I mean, in some ways it's not difficult when you look at the money that they're bringing in, but it does generate that discussion. And I'm very glad that we're having that now in the wider discourse. And this Blair Witch story is certainly it's so influential. Literally, you can trace back so much found footage just to any discussion of found footage, that style, alternate reality games, etc. You kind of have to mention Blair Witch. That's just how big it was
Yeah.
for filmmaking. Kane Pixels and the back rooms, etc. It really goes all back to there, and it's astounding that the knockoff effects from that.
Yeah, I won't add too much more to this because I know we'll be bleeding, or we're already bleeding in the Sleepless OT. But it sucks to see this happen to them, and it sucks that, like, once again, like, their image is being used without their permission. They're not being compensated for it, which is even the worst part about it too. Um, and the studio will make the movie for a very low budget, like the Blumhouse did. There's a fly in my room. Uh, and they'll make millions upon millions of profit. And it's like, man, you can't give them anything of that. Like, you can't compensate them for what they've done. And I remember the last article we brought up. I forgot which one said it of the three. But he was like, you guys haven't made a good sequel to any of the movies. Let us come in and do something, and we can actually, like, probably bring this back to where you guys are looking for it to do, like, in terms of profit and everything. And he has a point. Maybe they got something up their sleeve. They are the original creators. That would probably interest people way more in a Blair Witch sequel or reboot than anything else. Because, yeah, like, everything we've gotten, including that fucking video game that sucked, was just like, oh, dude, this doesn't capture what that movie did. It doesn't give me that same fear.
Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. A little belated Zoom-sponsored intermission. I take the rep on that one. We are back talking to Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, talking about this movie too. Now I realize I'll just say this, where I skew a little bit more negative on this movie than I think a lot of people do is the fact that, again, and I saw this in regular standard format, if you will, DCP. This is not a problem unique to the Odyssey, but it's a problem that's becoming more readily apparent, especially with blockbusters that I've noticed. And you gentlemen can tell me if I'm off base here. And I've seen this in different theaters too. It's not just one, it's different ones, AMC's, Phoenix's, and Cinemark's too. Saw it a little bit with The Long Walk even too. Another example is that American blockbusters are becoming increasingly optimized for presentations and technology that even the vast majority of corporate theaters do not possess. And what happens then is you get sound mixing that sort of combines the music and ambient noises that, for lack of a better term, tromps on the dialogue of the characters and drowns them out in like a muffle. And I saw this present quite a bit here. Ludwig is a great composer. His score doesn't burm as much as Hans Zimmer's did in Tenet, but it still burms at certain points. I can assume in IMAX or IMAX 70 millimeter, this might not be such an issue. However, in 2 months from now, you will no longer be able to see The Odyssey in IMAX or IMAX 70 millimeter. I think one of the reasons you don't hear about Dunkirk very much from the mainstream people or from the masses regarding its praising its story or its characters is because that movie is a theatrical experience. If you're watching it on FX, on your Roku television, it does not have the same weight. How could it? Now, I'm not saying Nolan should not experiment with new technology. I'm not saying any filmmaker shouldn't. But when you have a movie like this that is optimized for a very, very niche, complicated, rare format, it feels like the law of diminishing returns here. You have IMAX 70 millimeter at the top of the pyramid. You have IMAX. You have standard definition theaters. Then you have, I guess, the drive-in, maybe.
Oh, God. I would hate to see this at a drive-in.
The drive-in theater. And then you have streaming, laptop, smartphone, and it goes down.
My 3DS.
iPod Shuffle, audio only. Like, so my complaint is more levied at the fact that like technicalities and aesthetics aside, and the movie looks great. I just didn't feel like I wasn't in love with it enough where I could forgive it, and I could see it becoming a greater problem when this thing finally leaves theaters. I'm thinking of like, how does it play on a television screen in so many ways?
I totally get where you're coming from, because that is the issue. That I had that same issue with Dunkirk, where like I enjoyed the movie, but it's like I did watch it when it came like, to streaming and everything, and it's like it's still good, but like you're definitely missing a lot about that movie when you don't hear the planes in the distance coming from behind you in an IMAX theater, then towards the front, and then the explosion goes off and everything. The Odyssey has this advantage though. The Odyssey has the story is still there. The Odyssey itself still like is there from beginning to end, where it's like what will still make it fun to watch at home is watching this adventure from beginning to end and how it all culminates together in the last 45 minutes. But you are correct in thinking that, like, because yeah, when I was watching an IMAX, dialogue was perfectly heard, music was perfectly mixed. But I remember when I saw Tenet in standard in theaters and back in 2020, I was like sitting there, only 3 people in the theater, and I couldn't hear shit. It's just like, what are they even saying right now and everything? So that's why even when I saw Oppenheimer, I'm like, no, I'm seeing it in IMAX, because it's just like, clearly the guy just wants you to see the stuff in this format because he only mixes it for this format.
And it doesn't allow to the other thing I'll just mention briefly too is that it doesn't impede on scenes when hell's breaking loose. I'm not even talking the set pieces, like the thunderstorm sequence, like the fucking theater walls shake.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. The seats rumble. That's cool. Seats rumble. No D-box. If I still made rap music, I could use that line. Like, it's great. It's immersive. It's not even those scenes I'm talking about, like the Cyclops or even the Trojan War. It's not those scenes where it impacts. It's just the conventional dialogue when you have the score, the ambient noises, and the dialogue overlapping. You can almost like visualize the sound and the mixing and the ambience crushing the dialogue and muffling it.
It made me worried at scenes where Athena pops up, because when she pops up, there is a score to her that like follows, and I was just thinking while watching it, I'm like, damn, like, I'm loving this movie and it's not taking me out or anything, but in the back of my head I'm going, I sure as hell know the way that Nolan mixes this that score probably overpowers Zendaya's voice at times.
I saw last thing, and it does. As somebody who saw it in the plebeian theater, let me tell you, it does. Like, I saw a great, real quick, and then Dom, give your thoughts. I saw a great bracelet. Shout out to film critic Alonzo Duralde. Saw a great bracelet he bought at a flea market this weekend that I want. And because I don't know about you guys, when I watch at home, I always put subtitles on. He bought a bracelet. I don't know if they mass produce these things. I've never seen it, but he bought a bracelet. It says subtitles because y'all mumble. And I want one of those bracelets, and I saw that my theater does have an open caption.
I was going to say,
it does have an open caption screening at 12 p.m. on the weekdays, for Clarence and Ethel. No disrespect to Clarence and Ethel. They're living off Social Security. They get the senior discounts and stuff. God love them. But like, I'm like, I was telling the theater manager, I said, I know you would get so much bitching of this, and I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm just letting you know I would not bitch if there were subtitles on every movie in the theater.
Dude, I wouldn't either. I can't hear without subtitles. I legit have to watch everything I stream at home with subtitles.
I do too. And again, it brings me back. It's not the Odyssey's fault, but it's a larger issue that I felt really, I didn't see Tenet in the theater. But I felt it here. And again, it's one of those things I could forgive if I think maybe I had a smoother introduction to this, because I was on choppy waters. It was hi I'm Odysseus and welcome to the Odyssey.
Like I said, that first 20 minutes when I was when they're cutting a lot, like it's a lot to digest in that short amount of time.
What say you, D?
For me, I'm like, I'm glad someone's doing this. That's all I care. I'm
I,
just, I appreciate it. That's really what it comes down to. And it's like, yeah, no, there really is no way to recreate this for the masses except for when it is in theaters like this. And there's something really communal about that. There's something really unique about that. There's something really creative about that. And I like that. That's really all I have to say, because for me, the 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 experience that you get there uh, is something that
You'll remember.
you'll remember.
Yeah.
Right? I'm kind of being redundant here, but I'll say it again and again and again, which is that I'm just glad people get to
Yeah.
experience this in this way, in a way that isn't gimmicky or hokey. It is legitimately a really cool enhancement to the experience.
It is really cool. Like, even at my IMAX theater wasn't the 70 millimeter, but like seeing people walk into the theater that I look at their age, I look who they are, I'm like, I know for sure they do not give a shit about seeing anything in a premium format. But they knew with this movie, oh, everybody's talking that you have to do it for this, so I'm gonna experience it like that. Like,
If it
it
has
sucks
to be a
that,
branding thing, I'm
yeah,
okay with that. It's like what's the website everyone loves that you rate movies on?
Letterbox.
Um,
Letterboxd.
Letterbox. Yeah, it's like the gamification of movies through Letterbox. You know what? Sure,
Yeah.
fine, go for it. It's getting people to watch movies they would never watch before.
They made a passport for this movie too, where you can stamp every format you saw it in.
Great, honestly,
No,
great.
I'm for it too. I
Yeah.
see it with the high school and early college age kids that work at the theater at AMC.
Yeah, they love
Like
it,
I
man.
see it. They love it. They love it. And I'm a proponent of that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be stupid if I'm not a get off my lawn person when it comes, because I was also too, even before Letterboxd, I was on Mubi. I was on Mubi doing the same shit.
With
Like, you
Maria
know,
Menounos?
no, MUBI, the
Oh,
website.
MUBI, okay.
That's now a streaming service. That's now the streaming service and film distributor that released the substance.
Okay.
MUBI, movie.
I
Uh,
remember I know, Joe. I know
you're thinking
exactly
of
what you're
movie.
talking
You're
about.
thinking of movie.
No,
You know, with
Nuvi. Isn't it Nuvi or something? Some
New
shit.
Nuvi with Maria Menounos. I think you're right.
Double
Yes,
O. Yeah.
double O, double O. You know, Maria Menounos had a really good cameo on a couple Bar Rescue episodes. Anyway, um, I was like, oh, it's a Nuvi girl. Anyway, no, and again too, it didn't impede my enjoyment of it, but it did make me cognizant of the fact that, like, there's a way to see this movie. I don't have a way to see that version of the movie
Yeah.
too. And like I feel like the law of diminishing returns might seep down to this
Yeah.
when it finally does leave theaters. That being said though, like I still think, I mean, quite frankly, and it's easy to kind of forget this or maybe overlook this thing too, because I know, like, I don't know if he's viewed as a great actor. I don't really think he is. He's viewed as a ubiquitous actor, and he's viewed as an actor who's done a lot of different things. There might not be an actor who's done as many different things and has been very successful at them, regardless of what the duty calls for, than Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And this is one of his best performances. It really is. He might not have sort of the, I guess, he doesn't have a defining trait. Like, it's not his eyes, it's not his emotions.
Is it Everyman?
He's got sort of an everymanish quality to him. I've seen him play an angel in Dogma. I've seen him play like a spy in the Bourne movies. I've seen him play a Martian, and I've seen him play a man who bought a zoo. The guy had
Oh,
a
what?
comedian.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
No, you're good.
Bump my cord. He's like a chameleon, and he's great here. He's really great here because of how believable he is at internalizing himself and his feelings.
You see a difference too, like when they're doing the flashbacks of him back at home and how he is with his wife, him as a king and everything. You see a difference of that when he's leading his men to go home to where he's on the island with Calypso, and then when he gets home. Like there is a difference in each character that Matt Damon portrays at that point in time, or there is a difference in each point in time there that he portrays with Odysseus. It's like, it's like he does such a good job that it's like, no, I believe it. Like I'm lost in his performance. I'm believing he's this guy to my left here. I'm believing that's actually him.
What else here? Just in going through the cast, I think best casting choice, or like most impressive casting choice, is John Bernthal, because
I agree.
I'm like, how is Nolan gonna get something out of this guy that isn't like a big brutish? Oh, he's the king of Sparta. Oh, okay, so he's just a big brute. Got it. Okay. That's there you go. That's bang on the money. I was almost
he
like
literally said,
listening
"Let
to
me
the
tell you something," and I was like, yeah, "I'm with it."
My first Oscars lock is This Thing wins Best Casting. My
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
Oscars lock. This is the second winner of the inaugural Best Casting Award too. Deservedly so. I mean, it's a really great cast. And it's a cast too that, while I would have liked more moments with a handful of them, the screen time and the economy utilized for their performance is very good. Is very good and memorable too. There's a lot of blockbusters that feature characters for like significant, like comparable amounts of time, not very much, but you don't feel their performances as much as you do this one too.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson also too, tremendous job.
Corey
I mean,
Hawkins too. I thought both
Corey
of them
Hawkins.
they both played great suitors who you couldn't wait to get their ass whooped.
Everybody kind of gets to what also is nice is everybody kind of gets what they deserve at the end of this thing, which is the nice thing about like ancient Greek mythology. From what I've read, is
Yeah.
it's very much the gospel of comeuppance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. And I think in a world too, hell, in a country, America too, where I mean corruption is on display in so many different ways at the what you used to be able to look at as sort of like the highest beacon of authority and law, to see shitty people fall and get what's coming to them in movies, like, makes you kind of believe in justice and like the fraying fabric of justice. Draw to that conclusion what you will, but and to see it like this, from something that's 3,000 plus years old, and still have an impact too, is really tremendous too. Can I just also say one thing? I don't know if we want to parlay into closing thoughts here. I'll go last on that note, but the other thing was too. The one thing they don't explain, first off, that shot of the Trojan horse on the tide on the beach is
such a cool
great.
shot. Yeah.
It's just a really cool shot. The only thing is though, and again, I haven't, I've read probably of the Odyssey and ancient Greek mythology. I remember reading quite a bit, weirdly, in 5th grade about the Trojan War. Here's the thing that I want to know, though. Odysseus is a brilliant guy. Why did they put the fucking horse by the tide of the beach when soldiers were going to drown, when soldiers were drowning in the thing? That's the only thing that and I'm not expecting the movie to explain that. It's just something that, like, when I saw that image made me think again. I'm like, well, why did they put it so close to the damn tide? Like,
so it's weird because I've read the Odyssey and like it makes it sound like Elliot Page's character is
Sinan.
like Sinan brings it to them, and once again is lied to that nothing's in there.
It comes on wheels.
Yeah. Like they actually like I've read it like that, but I've also seen versions where it's like they've interpreted it as no, they just left it acting like they sailed away and left that as like their parting gift, like type of thing. And it's just like, so there's like both ways I've seen it, and it's just like, you bring up such a good point. Like, yeah, he's such a smart tactician until we were pissing and shitting on each other and drowning in it. It's just like,
like you put it so close to the damn water. I mean, it was never going to be comfortable. It was never going to be a comfortable sit. But to put it by the water where they have to breathe through straws, like
I'm like,
and I've seen it where they roll it in on, like, I think there was an Arthur episode even too, where they roll it to the door and leave it.
Yeah.
Which is a much more riskier gambit, honestly. Is a much more riskier thing. I mean, just in terms of, like, we could all die here, I don't know if you saw too, random point, because when the hell am I ever going to bring this up too? You know, the theaters that did not have the IMAX format, instead of the IMAX Odyssey popcorn bucket, the IMAX camera, it was the Trojan horse popcorn
Yeah, which
bucket.
I think is a cooler bucket, honestly.
I think it's a cool looking bucket too. The only thing I said though, I told the manager, who the hell would have thought, like, why don't you open up the stomach and then toy soldiers fall out? Like, yeah, that would have been something I would have been for. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna say, I'm like, I could have sworn to they did say something about high tide and low tide while they were hiding in the horse. But so much of this movie,
Yeah, true.
there's so much happening in the movie too that like maybe I'm just coping with like, oh, that's the explanation. He's not really like he came up with every strategy, but he couldn't think of high tide and low tide. But I
It
don't
boom there. I must have missed it. But
know. Yeah, there you go.
Joe, we'll go Joe, Dom, and me for closing thoughts.
Yeah, man, I love this movie. I'm so glad Nolan knocked it out of the park yet again. It's very rare for me to like go see a director that I think knocks it out with a movie like Oppenheimer, and then 3 years later, or the following film that they do, they give me the same exact level of quality of filmmaking and knock it out of the park again. I absolutely had a great time with this. Its cast is amazing. Everybody brought their A game. They came here to act. They came here to play characters. Nolan came to create. Ludwig came to make music. Like, it all just comes together into a beautiful, beautiful time at the movies. It is 4 out of 4 stars for me. I loved it.
Dom, what say you?
Yeah, man. It's it's I've been wrestling with this rating because it's like this is what we've come to know with Nolan's works. I believe we are in the midst of like Christopher Nolan's you know, O trilogy or something. Oppenheimer, Odysseus. I don't know. But I wonder if we're gonna get a third banger that's like this.
That'd be great.
And yeah, like this last two movies here. And I think I like it a lot. I think I like it a really, really lot. Um, it's like a standard in a way for me. It's engaging. You can make 3 hours of a Greek mythological thing engaging for me. I think that's really impressive. And I think I just have to give it 4 out of 4 stars. I'm sure I'm also really looking forward to the YouTube analysis community. That's really I enjoy that stuff all the time. And it really does reflect like, oh yeah, that's an angle I really hadn't thought of before. And you'll know it's a cut above. That's not a review. It's really like an analysis, an angle, a thesis that I really much enjoy. And this more than any other movie in recent time, I'm like, yeah, how do we tackle the Odyssey in this specific way? How does Nolan do it? And what are the critiques of doing it in like this modern era? I can't wait for it. But for now, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 4.
Sorry, my mic glitched again. So
Okay. I
Oh,
thought he was
okay.
doing something dramatic.
Audible.
I
Oh,
thought
I
you said
wasn't knowing.
1 star. I was like, damn.
No. How is his next movie? And I think I saw something that he said it's going to be like 3 to 4 years before he does something, which is kind of the time frame. I mean, it's been like, I mean, it was a 3 year gap, 3 year gap between Tenet and Oppenheimer, 3 year
Yeah.
gap between Oppenheimer and Odyssey. How is his next movie not the Iliad? Like,
I thought about that too. It was like if he wanted to do the story that takes place before this, if he wanted to do something like that.
I almost feel like it's like right in front of us. I'm like, how does he not do the Iliad? Now, I wonder though, like if he wanted to I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem getting the cast back. I feel like if they contracted him for 2 movies, it would have leaked long ago that
Mhm.
that's what it would have been. But that's just one thing we were talking about. Like, what's he going to do next to kind of
He
round out this trilogy? I mean,
Did you watch the credits? Did you watch the post-credit scene? Odysseus, I'd like to talk to you about the Iliad Initiative.
Travis Scott will return in the Iliad,
Yeah.
parental advisory.
He was
know?
one of the directors originally tapped for Troy. He was actually one of the
I
few
knew
ones
that.
yeah,
That's so
yeah.
funny.
And then it went to, you remember who it went to?
No, I don't.
Really underrated spectacle director, Wolfgang Peterson,
There we go.
who also did Poseidon, the '06 remake, which I think was his
Oh
last.
shit, the upside down ship.
The upside down ship poster, that really cool upside down ship poster. Yeah, no, and you know what? Troy gets a lot of shit. I kind of like Troy. Like, it's got some stupid moments, but
Troy's fun.
as far
Troy's a fun movie. It is.
It is. It's like it's almost like ancient Greek mythology. If you know, it's like the Patriot. It's like what the Patriot is to Braveheart. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In that way.
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually a good comparison. Yeah.
it's like Dunkirk and Tenet. I think your reaction to the Odyssey is going to depend in significant part on how you were able to view it. Not in all cases, but in some. I I enjoyed this movie the longer it went. The longer it went and the more focused on Odysseus it became. And I grew, I think even more afterwards, grew to appreciate sort of the economy of how the cast was utilized. I do wish there were a few more moments that breathed a little bit more with certain characters too. But as far as what is left to be impactful here is very impactful, from the set pieces to even smaller moments between um like Penelope and her son, between Calypso and Odysseus. Like there are some really well done, quieter, low key moments in this thing that I did grow to really appreciate. Um, More so even after the fact than even while they were happening too. That being said, for me at this point in time, it's 3 out of 4 stars. It's 3 out of 4 stars. I like this movie. I do like it. I am kind of preparing. I think this might be kind of the sinners of this year with the Oscars. I think this is going to get a lot of attention. I think this
I
is
think
going
so
to be
too.
the tent pole movie, which I'm fine with. You know what I mean at this juncture. But I enjoyed it. I did enjoy
Man,
it, not without its misgivings, but I did enjoy it.
I would love a collaboration effort between Coogler and Nolan now that you brought up Sinners. After especially since Coogler went to Nolan for like tips and how to shoot on IMAX for Sinners and everything. He got like the special thanks credit in Sinners. I would love to see those two work on something together.
I'd like to see Nolan direct what Coogler writes.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Yes. And I mean they can co-direct, I don't care, but I would like and they can even collaborate on the script. I would like to see Nolan direct a
Yeah.
Coogler
Give
story.
us what the Adventures of Tintin was going to be with Peter Jackson and Spielberg, but with these two.
Yes. No, that would do what Broadway Girls, the Lil Durk and Morgan
Yeah.
Wallen song should have done. It should have ended racism. Like it should have ended racism right there. I think we figured it out. Nolan and Coogler,
Hey,
you know.
you know what I learned this past weekend too about Nolan is he's a Chicago boy. I didn't know that. He grew up in the
Yeah.
summers out here.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't born in Chicago. I know
Yeah.
that, but he was born in England, I believe.
Yeah.
But
He went to
yeah,
Evanston every summer.
yeah. That is cool. That is a really cool that's a
Yeah.
really cool nugget right there. Had a lot of fun talking the Odyssey though. Had a lot of fun. Is I Love Boosters next week? I forgot.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
I thought so. I Love Boosters next week. A long delayed review
You
from
thought
the new
you
Booster.
thought the Odyssey was woke.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
They need to put that. I don't think it's on DVD yet, but they need to put that on the cover. They need to put that on the cover. You know, that would be biblical. But Odyssey's in theaters right now, and you could tell the respect and fear other filmmakers have because there ain't jack shit coming out this weekend. Um, in the dead of summer, there ain't jack shit coming out. The only two things is some Rudy Poot action movie looking thing called Motor City and the Pinocchio horror movie are the only two movies that are coming out this weekend, and then it's Spider-Man. So it just goes to show you this ain't no time for your passion project to come out. This ain't July 24th ain't the weekend to release your passion project unless you got Nolan's level of studio control there. That's our show tonight, though. We're back next week reviewing Boots Riley's I Love Boosters. Great to have the trio back in action once again for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly. This has been Sleepless with Steve.